on the expo floor at Permissionless. Leslie, thank you for joining me. You are a weaver of Web3. What are you weaving?
So I focus a lot of my time on building content for the space. I think regardless of whether we're in a bull market or in a bear market, what's consistent is content. It is the gateway for a lot of people coming into the space, and it's a way for people who are already in the space to make sense of what is going on, right? And so at Permissionless right now, of course, it's coming on the back of a rather tumultuous week in crypto, where we're seeing prices drive headline news, prices drive people's sentiment and motivation to still be in the space, right? But from a content perspective, what's been really interesting as a marketer is figuring out how a crypto exchange like CoinFLEX can really expand our thought leadership beyond what we're doing, beyond being an exchange, beyond being a stablecoin platform, being able to provide value to the community in a way that is ungated. And so a lot of what I do on the content side for CoinFLEX is really through my podcast called Crypto Unstacked, where I'm speaking to thought leaders in the Web3 space across a number of different verticals: investing, trading, NFTs, metaverse, crypto gaming, you name it. We cover it on the podcast, and I've been running that for the past 2.5 years. And it's been a really great way to be able to provide value to those in a way that's not only just about, highlighting the company that people represent, but really pulling out ideas and perspectives, because that's what's interesting, and being able to give a platform for people to do that.
So anyone out there can become a content creator, and those that are not producing content on a regular basis sometimes struggle with, like, how do I get started, or how do I become a high quality content creator? Oftentimes, I'll say to others, and I've heard others say as well, it's about having a process.
Right.
It's about having a rhythm, a cadence. So could you share with the world a little bit, not only about the process or how you go about creating content, but also just the lifestyle and how you think, whether it's, a coffee in the morning or a walk, just, walk us through a day in the life of Leslie in being a content creator for your organization.
I think it's always having motivation as your North Star, because in a situation where you're a content creator, but that's not your full-time role, that's not your full-time job. And for me, as the CMO of CoinFLEX, I have a number of other things that I have to take care of on a daily basis. But content underpins, right, a lot of the work that I do. So in that case, when I really don't have the sort of flexibility to have a very rigid schedule of researching content, then creating the content and having a team behind me distributing the content, when the workflow isn't that every single day, the main thing that I try to keep on top of is, one, headline news, so I always understand what's going on. But really, I think I'm searching for individuals who share perspectives on the space that I haven't thought of before, right? And that's where Twitter comes in. So a lot of crypto Twitter, to be honest, I know it can be a very, very noisy space, but when you do follow the right people, that's really where a lot of the nuggets come through. And so what I try to do is collect a lot of that information and try to weave that into my weekly podcast that I have with other guests who seemingly, don't have any relationships with, those that I'm following on crypto Twitter. But all this to say that, for Real Vision, which is a media platform that focuses in part on crypto, I'm starting a show with them called Real Vision Crypto Unwrapped. And, the point of this is to be able to provide really thoughtful analysis in bite-sized content. And so because this is a weekly show, a lot of the work that I do on a daily basis, keeping on top of headlines and crypto Twitter, really allow us together to think through, right, what is the best content to put out on this weekly show so that when people want to recap, they get the high quality content that they're looking for. So
headline news, sometimes it's bullish, sometimes it's bearish. When you're going about analyzing and deciding what you're going to put out there in the world, reflect here for a moment on an inspiring story, an interesting story, something that you would identify as being one of those stories or one of those headline news weeks where you had trouble or difficulty figuring out how you were going to share your thoughts with the world. Because in this new environment of Web3, we often have critics, we have cheerleaders, and we have doubters. So sometimes we have to make difficult decisions, right? So I want to find like one particular news headline or one story that you could speak specifically about and share with others about your content process and how you navigated that particular news story. Do you have one in mind?
I mean, let's talk about the Terra Luna situation.
All right, let's talk about it.
Last week, stablecoins for a really long time had a background narrative to the space. Stablecoins have become a mainstay of the crypto ecosystem. It is the backbone for on-ramping a lot of new users and also existing users as well, because of the way it's being used for trading purposes, right? And the utility was always there for stablecoins. Unlike Bitcoin and Ethereum, you can use stablecoin for payments. You can use it for settlement, especially if you're a corporate. And so the stablecoin narrative has always been, well, of course, it's a stablecoin that is pegged one-to-one with a reserve asset such as USD. What can possibly go wrong, right? It doesn't have that speculative narrative that another crypto asset, such as a Bitcoin or Ethereum or a Luna, you name it, has. And so when, last week happened, all of a sudden, mainstream attention was forced to look at stablecoins in a very different light and question the role of stablecoins. And so the big question that came out of that was, why is it the case that stablecoins are not stable? Why aren't all stablecoins created equally? And so from that headline, that very big question, came this, personal interest in wanting to figure out, how do you categorize all of these stablecoins that exist out there? Obviously, you have USDT and you have USDC, but they're a very different beast than a UST, right? Or CoinFLEX, we have our own stablecoin called FlexUSD. How do you make sense of all of these different categories, all of their attributes and risks? So that led me down a path to do a deep dive on figuring out how exactly we can create a taxonomy for stablecoins. And this is nothing new, right? A lot of people tuning in might say, oh, of course, I've already, been able to categorize stablecoins. This was not the first opportunity for people to come at the stablecoin narrative with, we must figure out a category. Rather, it was an accelerant, it was an impetus for us to really be able to figure out, okay, past the headline, right? How is it the case, or why is it the case that a USDC, for example, is much more trustworthy of a stablecoin than a UST? And so as a content creator, it's my responsibility not to be partial to one or the other, but to really provide that objective perspective, right? And be able to tell listeners how is it that they can think about what's happened with the Terra Luna situation, as opposed to coming out and saying, this is my opinion on why I thought this was never going to work. Of course, there are some people who, obviously offer that op-ed and are able to share, their thoughts. But for me, I think my initial responsibility was to be able to highlight just why stablecoins are, just as important as the next crypto asset out there to understand, because this space is not only about the speculation, but it's about the real utility. And this is ultimately where Bitcoin got started all those years ago, so it kind of feels a little bit full circle when we're kind of narrowing down on that narrative.
Okay, so all those years ago, there was another organization that started with the letter L, Lehman Brothers. And so I had this moment when Luna was going from 80 to 70 and I was like, here it goes. It's going to zero. And we felt that. And so removing ourselves from Luna and Lehman Brothers, just as we wrap up here, where have you been in your finance professional journey? Where have you been and where are you going? Just tell everyone about yourself and your professional journey.
Sure. So I started my career in traditional finance, in wealth management at Brown Brothers Harriman in New York City. So spent a good number of my years there. And really this was, during a time when crypto was kind of just starting to become much more mainstream. But through my personal experiences, basically, I had to hop around from different countries, ultimately left New York for London. And then after a few months, I had to leave from London to Hong Kong, which is the epicenter of crypto trading. And so very naturally, because of certain people that I met, certain relationships that I've built, decided that I needed to go full-time into crypto. And so this was 2018. And I'm glad I did, because I ultimately ended up working with companies, crypto finance companies. That's always been the angle that I've come at the space with. These crypto finance companies have become the backbone of the trading space. And obviously that's blown up over the past, blown up in good ways, over the past few years. And through that experience, basically, was able to build up a whole network, not only within Asia and specifically, Hong Kong, where I spent about 3 years in, but also just building up a global community with other like-minded individuals as well. But, since then, the space has grown significantly just beyond crypto trading and investing to the creator economy space with NFTs and the metaverse and this whole new section of crypto gaming I'm still trying to figure out. But yeah, that has really led me down a path now, as the CMO of CoinFLEX, to really be able to think through what Web3 marketing looks like. And so it's kind of funny because I started off in a very, very, finance specific role, working on portfolio management. And now I've turned into a marketer. So I say I'm sort of an accidental marketer, but it's through this content angle as a podcaster running Crypto Unstacked for the past 2.5 years that I've really come to understand really the importance of marketing for crypto companies, whether you be a crypto finance company. We're here actually in the MetaMask booth, so we are.
Shout out to MetaMask for letting us borrow this corner of the
Shout
carpet.
out to MetaMask, right? They're a really prominent crypto tooling, platform for mainstream and crypto native investors, and but they need to be out here. They need a market. They need to educate people on what it is that they do and why they're important, right? So it's just been a fascinating kind of journey coming from this finance specific role into marketing. And I just I couldn't think of a role that I'd rather be in at the moment.
Well, I think the place that you might be going is in the future writing a book called The Accidental Marketer.
The Accidental Marketer,
And we'll see if that happens.
maybe.
Until next time. Thanks so much, Leslie.
Perfect. Thank you so much.